I believe life is about keep it simple. The same streets that my ancestors walked on 5, 6, 7, 8 generation, I still walk down it. Some of these houses will have cemeteries in the backyard. The spirits are there. The river itself, to walk down a nature trail, to see a groundhog, to see a snake, to see, you can turn towards Colonial Heights here and like he was back in the 17th century. You can hear a slave running through the Underground Railroad, coming through the trees, like something spoke to you that I'm here. If you go back into primitive days, there's evidence of life been discovered here 6500 BC has been discovered here on this island. Certain artifacts. But if you want to move forward, when we really became a location in reality around 1634, when this Henrico County came all the way down to the Appomattox River and called Tunzanake. Doing it back in the day called the regulation, back in the, if you was free, you had to plant a mulberry tree. That's why we got a mulberry tree on each, most of these lots around here, because that represents.
That's a mulberry tree, isn't it?
Yeah, that represents freedom. That's a mulberry tree. That's a mulberry tree. John Bolin, the descendant of Pocahontas, went to the House of Burgess and said, I want this island to be named in the honor of my great-great-grandmother, because it's supposed to have been given to her as a wedding gift. I want to be named Pocahontas. And with him going to the House of Burgess at that time and having a name, it was named Pocahontas in Chesterfield County. There was unlimited freedom given to a lot of blacks after the Revolutionary War. That's where a lot of my folks got land. So a lot of people throughout the state of Virginia who was emancipated from the Revolutionary War to fought for their slave master left and came here because they didn't feel threatened by being here, and they could work, and the labor folks in Petersburg was needed, and they came to Pocahontas and they was free. Ancient voodoo was practiced here. Christianity was practiced here. From where I'm at in life here now, I am still communicating with the past. When I walk the river trails, it's like a spirit speak to me through the trees. At night, like I can see things. Look like I'm protected. You asked me a question, what's it like to live here? Regardless of what went on in Petersburg, or wherever I was at in the world, even when I went to Germany, Norway, Greece, military, no place was like Pocahontas till I got back. I felt I was protected from childhood to manhood. The spirit still protected me. That's how I feel about it. Each picture reflects our history and our culture. Well, the first one is Isaac Jefferson. Isaac Jefferson is one of Thomas Jefferson's slaves that came here in the 1820s after Mr. Jefferson's death. He stayed until he died. He was part of the Bolin. He had saw Pocahontas on the way to Williamsburg with the Hemming family and saw this as being the promised land. Do you realize that most of this stuff I got, my white friends gave it to me? Yeah. They wanted me and said, Richard, put this in your museum and let people know of the past. If you don't know your past, you're bound to repeat it. A lot of things they gave me for correspondence, how you can join, but we blocked the hotline number out. Even here, a friend of mine from Northern Virginia sent me an old paper and told other people was hung in Petersburg. John Forbes, June 11th, 1889, in Emporia, the Cotton people. These folks send me these things, and most of them that I got this stuff from is white friends of mine. A lot of them are very hesitant about bringing the memorabilia like this by here. But a lot of them trust in me because I go from different places to lecture. I lecture about the Black Confederate, I lecture about so forth and so on. But they don't got confidence in me that I would display this in the museum, but I would not carry it out in public. They're real things that happen throughout America. So to live in Pocahontas and they selling slavery, slaves only about less than a mile away from it. You hear slaves, they say on a clear day you can hear them being whipped. And even down on the Appomattox River, there were slaves down there and free Negroes on Pocahontas Island. So to live here with the freedom we had, it was a gift from God. That's why we always felt like this was the promised land. And a lot of slaves ran away from throughout Virginia just to get a taste of the promised land. Same as they did back in 1937, the WPA Act. Some people was going around recording the last of the slaves. And if they wouldn't have done that, I got the book, Last of the Slaves, How They Saw Slavery, that would have been gone. And I think it's so important now. And a lot of these villages and different things like this, they need to record folks. I am what you call from the World War II to 1940s. We have fallen like flies, you know. You need to record the history in each locality. Each village has its own history. It's not in the book.
And each village's history is different from another.
It is. Each village history is different. It's different. It is. And it'll never be in a book.
In 1831, in Southampton, Virginia, a slave by the name of Nat Turner lived. Heavily influenced by the Bible, Turner began to set in motion an act that would lead into the new phase of all blacks living across the South.
After Nat Turner, he reinterpreted religion. See, he reinterpreted religion. No one before Nat Turner never saw a role as a black man in religion. And left the book of Revelation that defined a man with white woolly hair and brown skin. But Nat Turner took that Bible and said, if Moses can do it, God's going to give me the power to do it. And I'm going to walk in Jerusalem just like John. Now, Petersburg, he was hoping that free Negro from Petersburg, Norfolk, and all that joined him. But they never did it. They never did it.
Why do you think that they didn't do it?
Because of strenuous fear and intimidation.
After interpreting a solar eclipse as a divine message, he led a group of 70-plus slaves in a campaign of violence, which resulted in dozens of men, women, and children being murdered. In his museum, Mr. Stewart shows us a physical remnant of this period in time.
These are slave shackers here. 18th century slave shack for Big Bubba. Hey, $5,000 if you want to buy a pair now. That's what they cost. This represents the suffering of the black folks, the black slave that suffered on the Appomattox River only less than 3/4 of a mile away from here, how they were shackled. Also, Nat Turner, did you help us, did you hurt us? Now, for the man in bondage, and you stayed in there another 30 plus years after you, Nat Turner, I don't know. But these here represent slavery, but this here for to represent you. This is what Nat Turner killed a lot of his master and kids with. They chopped them up with what you call a broad axe. That's what this is.
Knowing what those were used for and all the horrible things that have happened with them,
How does that make you feel when you're holding them, knowing the history of what those were used for?
When I feel the spirits of yesterday, it hurts. It hurts to know what they went through. I have read the articles about slavery on the Appomattox. Down in this area, some of them tried to escape and come into Pocahontas, and they put them snails around the neck. But with me preserving Pocahontas, and the spirits of yesterday is still here, and I can tell a story of suffering, I believe I'm accommodating what they want. That's my belief. But these things that make me feel sad, very sad, that the arm prints of some slave is inside these shackles.
The rebellion began on August 22nd, 1831. Within 72 hours, their forces were crushed due to an overwhelming force from militias supported by U.S. artillery fire. Mr. Stewart shows us a list of those involved with the rebellion.
Here's a list of them. Free Negro, children, either you was acquitted, you was hung, or you was transported out of the state. Right there. They know the aftermath instead of celebrating the horror of Nat Turner. How did it affect the free Negro in the state of Virginia and in Southampton? It hurt us more than it helped us. Even though Nat Turner's slave revolts are based upon he was inspired by the Bible, but the aftermath, we were once again put in the same category as a slave, the free Negro. For every one slave master and children Nat Turner killed, if you go from the Mississippi to Louisiana to North Carolina, Virginia, and throughout the eastern seaboard, eastern coast, probably you got more than 5 blacks was killed for every one person, or even more. There in Southampton, you probably hundreds of people was killed there. Even we lost our reputation here in Pocahontas as more or less, the white man get along with us. That's what I said. They didn't trust us any longer, and they watched us. They placed restriction. A certain time we could not go out in the street. The black codes was in force. They watched us. You could not have a gun. You could not do anything. The aftermath of Nat Turner need to be taught. It lasted more than Nat Turner slave revolt might have lasted less than 30 days, but for nearly 30 plus years until the Emancipation Proclamation, we suffered. For Nat Turner, a lot of your whites among us started to relocate towards the mountain, towards Charlottesville, Gordonsville, and so forth. A lot of them left here because they felt there was a terrorist among them. So a lot of them...
It turned neighbors against neighbors?
Yeah. You didn't know who to trust. So a lot of people left here, and then it really built up, vice versa. A lot of blacks moved in here after Nat Turner because retaliation was throughout the state of Virginia and so forth. So a lot of them flopped in here, and that is when we became majority over here in Pocahontas. You have to understand the route of the Underground Railroad. Petersburg, living in the most commercial district, what do you have? You got railroad, you got waterway, you got highway, right? Where do most of your rivers pass? A plantation. Where most of your railroad tracks pass? A plantation. Most of your slaves, maybe they didn't know where they was at, but they followed the river. And the river brought them right towards Pocahontas. They organized where they're going to carry them, and they build what you call a false bottom in the boat. They'll build boats with certain people, because remember now, the Irishmen and so forth, and so they were both, and they would take them and put them down and build a flooring across them. And that's how we was able to take them from the Appomattox River to the James River to the York River on out through Chesapeake. This was the number one, the waterway was the number one highway out of here. And because of the people that lived among us, made us very successful. No one had ever been captured leaving Pocahontas. It was so effective. It's hard to say about the Underground Railroad. It came through here because most of it was our oral history. And if you ever read about history of Richmond, look at where some of the slaves ran. They ran towards Petersburg. Why did they come towards Petersburg? It was easy out of the Appomattox River than probably going out to James. And they couldn't go to the mountains, so something about Petersburg, it was easy to leave Petersburg. And where they gonna camouflage you at? Where you gonna sleep at night?
In 1858, the schooner Keziah was secretly smuggling 5 slaves to freedom via the Underground Railroad. According to local lore, the men boarded the ship from Pocahontas Island.
Well, everything went as planned. But as his captain was sailing out the Appomattox River, he got stuck on a sand barge. And getting stuck on a sand barge, he couldn't get it off. And when the inspectors came down and inspected, they discovered how we were running the Underground Railroad. What we did, false bottoms and boats. That sort of changed a little bit, how we operate the Underground Railroad. But we always had a certain means. If you see, one thing you never heard people talk about. Why do they call it Underground Railroad? Anybody ever thought about why they call it the Underground Railroad? We ain't had no Underground Railroad. So we had subways in New York, and that wasn't back in during the day. How this thing came about, they depict a slave sitting on back of a train going into Canada under the border. Now, if you look at most plantations, what runs by most plantations? Railroads and rivers. So a lot of your slaves started to escape through railroad and all that kind of stuff. Tied them on the bottom of rail cars, understanding how it was. So a lot of your slaves escaped from the Underground Railroad by railroad. A lot of the message, you take a lot of the slaves that worked on the railroad, gave message about what was going on. Like when they hit, ain't gonna be long, I'll be gone, and all this. They actually told a message when they were working on the railroad. You didn't know that, did you? Yeah. Actually working on that railroad, that's what a lot of your songs came from. Tell old John, won't be long, we be going on home, look out. Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Like a message hidden in plain sight.
That's right, a message. Just like down on that river there, they would say that you could tell when a movement was gonna go. When they started singing, won't be long, for I be gone. Swing low, cherry-o, old Joe, getting out here. They would actually pick a message was in the song of when the railroad, Underground Railroad was in movement. It tells you the song. It's written in the song. When I close to them places and I own some of the properties, it still feel like it's the rite of passage to me that I'm still running Underground Railroad of history. We are still discovering the Underground Railroad through history. My museum is in the route of the Underground Railroad. It's a rite of passage. They have told me, you got to look out. This is my responsibility, what I'm doing right now. I was chosen to do this.
April 12th, 1861. Confederate guns fire on Fort Sumter. The war had come.
Charles Tinsley, one of our people among us, because they had told us Egypt with us against us, he stood in front of the courthouse and he pledged our allegiance to the mayor towns of the city of Petersburg, that we will serve you in any capacity you wanted, and the community pledged their allegiance to us that they would take care of our families and everything while you're away. And they did that. Now, after a period of time, they wore us down. It's old saying, they wore you down. They got such thinning in the ranks in servitude, they locked our women up overnight and wouldn't let them come home. And one of the songs the women used to sing as they came out of there, Johnny, do you love me now? That's why our women used to sing. And that's why we served them. That's why they believe that this is our 40 acres over here in the center, while we still got it. There's no indication that anybody ever come over here to try to take our land. And we believe it's all because the wars, especially the Civil War, was with the South and they didn't take our land. The Black Codes of Virginia that tells you black people's right from the 16th century all the way up until the 19th century. A lot of people ask the question, why did we serve in the Confederates? Because the ordinance required us to. Almost the same ordinance required us to serve in the Revolutionary War applied to the Civil War. If you were down here, you either be a part of us or get the hell out of here.
The war could not go on much longer. Grant besieged Petersburg, and with Sherman's cavalry joining him, forced Lee to abandon his capital. It is April 3rd, 1865.
Give me liberty or give me death, Patrick Henry. You was talking about a 3-cent tax on tea in the Boston Harbor where we use that. Give me liberty or give me death, but you didn't give up your slaves. Mr. Jefferson, the founding fathers. When you had the chance to do something, you said no more slave ships come to America after 1808. Now, 3/5 of America. What I'm saying now, when the Civil War was over and you was economically deprived for 200 or 300 years, how do you catch up? You're behind in the race 200 or 300 years. How do you catch up? But there was 2 post-traumatic stress out there. You had the poor white man, overseer. There was no provision made for the poor white man and the black man. That's what the Ku Klux Klan came about. No provision. Now, your question was, disparity between income and education in America, you'll never catch up. Right now, parts of Virginia, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, North Carolina, Florida, the mountains, there's generational poverty and despair that would never catch up because of the post-traumatic stress of slavery. And another thing, we as black and white have to sit down and talk how we can get a better world. I don't care if you're white or if you're black, poverty hurts. I don't care if you're white or you're black, illiteracy hurts. And if you don't get some help, you can't get out of that hole. It's so sacred. See, Pocahontas is not only black history, it's white history too. Whites was here before the blacks got here. The Bolins, the Robins, they was here. Then we came. This was their homeland. But it's seen that God blessed us and made this our promised land. Now, there's one among you. This is what black folks believe. There's one among you that's one day going to lead y'all to the promised land. There's one among you. But our Moses is bold among us, and we're here on our promised land. And one day he will rise. He'll maintain the promised land. I'm Moses. I'm that man that they nurtured as a child and told us the story of Pocahontas. I am that man that, look, if you are walking down the street, something will come and meet you And when you get there, it's not there. I believe there's so much death and destruction was on this island through both wars, the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. A lot of the dead soldiers that never went home is wandering on here. For an example, this was the gateway to death from the Petersburg, at Richmond, Petersburg Railroad that brought dead bodies in from the Manassas and so forth. And some of them got off a train and wandered in here. I believe that Native American spirit still haunt this place. But once there was an Indian burying ground here, I believe my folks still surround me. You can be walking down the street according to our history, and I believe it. There's a spirit that something will come by you and you feel like you freezing, but yet in an instant you get hot. The river itself, where they beat slaves to death, drowned them and killed them. Their spirits walk this island, and I feel I can feel them and see them.